Sophie, welcome back for another episode of Seesaw. No doubt you've been pounding the gallery floors to bring us some information from the front line of photo exhibitions.
Hello, Grant. It's very nice to be here as always. And yes, I have been pounding, well, sort of gallery spaces anyway. And what I thought we would do today, as it's summer, and as th people are thinking about summer holidays and time off school and doing things with families and so on, the three things that I have to talk about today are are sort of the summer holiday linked. And there are things that aren't that you can do with more than just sort of like one person, their family things. And there's a lot of interesting things for different people to look at and think about, I think.
That sounds great. I think one of the things also always to bear in mind is although you're reviewing stuff in the UK, and a lot of our listeners are all around the world and our viewers, to make sure that, this could open opportunities for people to go and look at what's happening in their own local museums and galleries and that kind of stuff as well as checking out the photographers you talk about, of course.
Exactly, absolutely. And what I have to talk about today um, is some stuff that's traveling and some stuff that's online as well. So it all works. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is the World Press Photography Awards 2025. So in London, there's an exhibition on at Here East in Hackney Wick, which is in Stratford, far East London. And it's on at the moment until August 25th, but it's also on in Amsterdam, Sydney, Sao Paulo, Berlin, New York, many other places around the world. So you can actually go and see it. I'm just clicking on another computer here so I can actually look at the pictures while I'm talking to you. Um, so there's lots of places this exhibition is taking place as well as online. So the World Press Photography Awards, um, the best, unquote, the quote is the best and most important photojournalism and documentary photography of the last year. Okay?
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting one because I was a judge a few years ago of the World Press Photo Awards, and it was very Dutch in the way in which it was run at that time. And in fact, the exhibition used to be at the Royal Festival Hall for a number of years, and then it's gone for a whole political problems. It's gone through issues around what its reasoning for existence is, the kind of work, and so forth. So I think what once was a very kind of solid set of awards is slightly controversial now.
I know that, and I know that you had a post on the podcast recently about the controversy over the Nick Ut Terror War Napalm Girl Vietnam War image.
Yeah.
So the World Press Photography, they have suspended the award for that at the moment. The picture is still has an award, but the name of the photographer has been taken away.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very controversial situation, but go back in the archive, listeners, if you want to hear my take on that and the take of a lot of people involved. So World Press, and also I should say, the World Press Photo Awards have not been in the UK for a number of years.
So it's back at the moment, and as I say, so here East is it's called MPB Gallery. So it's this kind of little small space. It's low ceilinged. It's utilitarian. It's not nothing like the Royal Festival Hall. It's a space on the canal in Hackney. It's actually a lovely location. It's just around the corner from the fantastic new V&A storehouse in Stratford. So I really do recommend just even going and wandering around that area. It's a beautiful location, and the V&A Storehouse is fantastic for anyone, everyone. So this is a little gallery, and you have to hunt around to find it a bit. But when you get in, um, I just found it so spectacularly moving and worthwhile. So you say that back in the day it was very Dutch. Of course it was. At the moment they have an independent, they say, well, they have an international jury, 31 people on the jury, so it's from all over the world. They say they reviewed over 59,000 photographs this year from 3,000, nearly 3,800 entries. So it's really huge. There are 42 winners in the exhibition. But the good thing about the exhibition is that it covers a lot, but it's not overwhelming. It's you can go in, you can spend as much time as you want. I think I was there for about an hour and a half. You could do it much faster than that, but everything counts in it. It's well curated, I felt. It it just works very well as an exhibition. So what can I say? So I wanted to, a couple of the things that caught my eye particularly. So one of the winners is Clarence Sifroy in Haiti. So he's with Agence France Presse. And he photographs, he's, what is he? He's 25 years old. He's based in Port-au-Prince in Haiti. And he photographs, I mean, Haiti's had three prime ministers in the last year. I mean, the UK's had three prime ministers in the previous year. But on the other hand, we haven't been run by gangs who are terrorizing the countryside
Well, hang on a second. I think you could that's open for debate and discussion.
yeah, absolutely. However, in Haiti, gangs are killing thousands of people, literally thousands of people, displacing people, burning houses down. So this set of works that he has in the exhibition, just as one example, it's called Crisis in Haiti. And for instance, one of the images that's just really stood on me is a picture of he's got photographs of bodies of houses destroyed from the air, from close-ups of individuals and so on. So there's a picture that was photographed in November last year. And what you see is a picture of three dead bodies on the ground. They're suspected gang members. They're face down. You can see them from the waist down. They were shot by the police. There are tires thrown on top of them. And you can see um, tires in the air. Somebody is throwing more tires onto them. And you've got the shadow of the hand that's throwing them on the ground. Um, and in the background, there's a large hand-painted sign that says Haiti University Professional. All the elements of this, and if you want to look more closely, it gets more grisly. But there's this real voodoo-ish feel to it, which is really appropriate. And so he's got this whole series, small series, but series of works there. And this is one of the things that really stuck with me. And one of the things about the World Press photos is obviously, you've got lots of Gaza, you've got lots of Ukraine, you've got the things that we know about, but there are the things that we forget about. So that was one of the images, one of the stories that stayed with me. Another thing that really stayed with me is Musik Nolte, Droughts in the Amazon. So this is a photographer. He's Mexican. He's 37. And the Rio Negro at Manaus in Amazon Basin normally is 21 meters deep, and last October is 12 meters deep. So it's evaporating basically. So his photographs are pictures of fishermen walking this huge dried out river. Um, Floating homes that were designed to be on top of the water, and they've collapsed because the river has literally vanished. Um, and there are basically, so the documentation around the exhibition is also fascinating. There are lots of interviews with the jury and some interviews with the photographers, individual photographers. And the issues that they basically say are driving everything at the moment are climate change, war, and migration. So you keep coming back to those. Um, and then there are the big issues as well. So there are specific images that we've seen. There's a picture of the Trump assassination attempt. This is by Jeben Botsford of the Washington Post. And it's good to see, it's good to see these things in real life because obviously we're looking at them on our phone all the time. Sometimes it's just good to see something that's printed large. And when you look at this image again with the benefit of hindsight, the thing that really struck me about it was the aesthetics. They're absolutely stunning. So you look at so all of the security detail that's holding Trump and around him, they're all white, three women and five men. Everyone in the foreground in the photograph, including Trump, is wearing a navy suit. And the way the light is working, the light and the shadows mean that everybody's shirt is the same tone of blue, sort of light blue. Um, And there's a blonde security guard. Trump has his arm around her shoulder, and she's holding a red MAGA cap. And then there's a sliver of the red stage background that bisects the picture in the background. And there's when you look in the background, there's lots of red dots because there's the other MAGA caps, and of course there's the kind of the flash of a splash of red across his face and across his cheeks and his ear. And then on the left of the building and the background, there's a board of text that's headlined "Illegal Immigration in the U.S." And then on the right, there's this row of a dozen flags, so like lances or spears, and sort of like the Roman army. And then the crowd, and you start looking into the crowd in the background, you can see many people are holding up phones. Several other people are holding up their fists, and not one person's looking scared. No one's ducking. No one's actually reacting in any way like something terrible is happening here. And I just think it's fascinating because, as I say, we look at these things 2 inches square on our phones. We see it on the news headlines, but when you actually take the time to stop and look into it, you see so much more visual information.
I think it really is the power of the still image, isn't it? I mean, so many of us are aware of that situation through the actual news footage.
Yeah.
But it's that idea of actually taking that moment within the news footage. You know, for so long, people said photography is dead because of television, whereas actually the still image still retains that power. And I think that is the key with the World Press Awards, is that it is about the power of the single image. And in a sense, it's very old school in
It is.
its kind of nature and the kind of images you're talking about, because we
It,
could talk about the images you were saying there about Rwanda, you know, and McCullen, and we could go back to Vietnam, and you know, we can go through any of those terrible African situations.
There's like even the things that we see every single day, every single hour on the news. One of the images that those are just a couple I wanted to specifically mention, but I have a ton of these on my that I took photographs, my own reference. So there's a picture of drone attacks in Beirut by Murat. I can't. My Turkish pronunciation is always a challenge. Murat Senjul, I think. And so it's a drone attacks in Beirut. So you have it's the side of a road, and you've got one, two, three, four, five, six, seven adults or seven people and a small baby, and they're sitting on the side of the road, and they're obviously looking up because they can hear something. They don't know what it is, but they can hear something. They're looking up jets and drones flying at low altitude. So this they don't know what it is. 29th of September last year. Um, but again, it's the humanity here. You're looking at the men and the women and the little boy who are all gazing and their expressions, and the one woman who's not looking, who's holding the baby, because obviously that's her priority, not what's happening up there, what's happening down here. This is a moment of such humanity and not drama, just not horror, because there's plenty of horror in here as well. But I think this is the reason to go and see one of the reasons to go and see this exhibition, preferably in real life, wherever you are in the world if you can, is to be reminded of things that we need photography for. We need photography for bearing witness and for capturing history and for sharing human experiences. And they're not all bad as well. There's some beautiful positive things in here as well. But it's just so powerful.
You know, though, it makes me feel that, well, a couple of things really. I mean, we've spoken, and about photographic exhibitions that you've been to see over the month, and I have to say that a number of them to me feel rather indulgent,
Yes.
from the perspective of the photographer. And then we talk about this work, which is old-fashioned in its kind of storytelling, its aesthetics, its approach, its practice. And yet, for years, they couldn't find anywhere to hold this in London. Now they've put it in a tiny little gallery out on the outskirts of London, whereas we could argue perhaps that this should be in Somerset House, or this should be in the centre of, and I know that in other cities, it is in the middle of the city. You know, it is a major exhibition. So I do wonder as to whether or not they're doing a good enough job at pushing this exhibition for its importance?
Very possibly. On the other hand, I'm pretty sure that if the World Press Photo organization had the ability to was offered Somerset House and could afford it and so on, um, they would probably jump at it. But
But I think that's a really key point, though. When you're talking about affording it, this is where I'm sort of saying in the past, we would have seen this in our Sunday supplements to our newspapers. That's where we saw this material. And now we don't have that outlet.
well, we have a little bit of it. You can actually see pictures of it, obviously, in the Guardian photograph of the month, photograph of the day, photograph of the week, that kind of thing. But it is striking how this is the most emotionally, just the most emotional exhibition I've seen for a long time. And you really have to hand it out. You have to go schlep a long way to find a place out of a look here. There were a few people there when I was visiting. But yes, it's really important. It's a shame that it's not absolutely central and that everybody isn't talking about it. But I think this says more about our attitude partly and the attitude to documentary photography as much as anything else. You know, fashion photography, people tend to go, "Ooh, that's exciting." Photography, portrait prizes, naming no names, people tend to go, "That's exciting." This is human existence, and it's like, oh no, it's pushed away in the corner there.
Because it's more
Um,
difficult to look
one
at
of the
and more difficult to deal with.
Some of it, but some of the images are not, some of the stories are not. Everything there's a lot of trauma, but this one of the ones here, this Ibrahim Alipur in Iran, a series called Bullets Have No Borders, and what his story is about is border couriers, they who basically almost like like human beings who carry things across borders, um, household appliances, mobile phones, clothes, and they carry them on their back through the treacherous mountain terrain, from Iraq and Turkey into Iranian Kurdistan. And the Iranian government, so timely now, suddenly again, it bans the import of many of these kind of products, because they want to protect local production, and save foreign currency. But these guys are carrying these things, and the images are stunning because they are huge black and white vistas of mountains and tiny people on the mountains, and on the backs of these tiny people are huge packages of like widescreen TVs and whatever. So it's huge things. The images are are so beautiful and so bizarre. And this is one of those kind of stories that it's not bloodshed, it's not horrors or anything like that. It's just one of those stories that where else are you going to hear about that from?
Well, I think that's a good reason to go and see it, isn't it? But when you did mention ahead of our conversation that you were going to cover this, so I thought, okay, I'll try and find out if I can find out what's in the exhibition. And the website for the gallery showed almost no work.
Yeah.
And then I went onto the World Press Photo website, and then that was just very confusing. So it was very hard to actually find out what is in this exhibition and
Yeah.
what I'm actually going to see. So it sounds to me, and obviously this is kind of work that we feel is important and should be seen and should be promoted. But unfortunately, I think, as with a few things recently, I think World Press Photo need to do better in
Yeah.
actually getting this work out there and seen.
A lot of the time I find with websites, um, you can get maybe a list of names if you're lucky and two or three images. And then you have to go and do the legwork online. If you're lucky like me, you can go and do the legwork in real life and go in person. Um, but it is an issue. It's definitely an issue. So it is, as I say, it's appearing in a lot of different cities around the world over the next few months. So if you can go in person, try and go in person. And if you're in London until, as I say, September 25th, I said. It's no, August 25th, sorry. It's worth the schlep to go and see it.
And they usually produce a book as well to coincide with it. I don't know if they've done that this year.
Yep, they have done a book this year, which also looks very nice. I didn't buy the book this year because slightly too much trauma. I spent slightly too much money on photography books, haven't we all as well? But it's great. It's just really good. It's really solid.
Yeah, as we would expect. Okay, what else have you seen?
All right, let's look at something something to provide a break from the human trauma. Um, Astronomy photographer of the year.
Hmm. Okay, so
Excited.
I have absolutely no interest in space, nature, wildlife.
Landscape. I know. And you and Bill completely dissed landscape photography.
I think
So
that's a slight exaggeration.
possibly, but listeners go back and listen. Check who's right about this. They dissed it.
Okay.
Um, however, you are getting off kind of lightly here because the other thing I wanted to talk about today was wildlife photographer of the year. And
Oh God, no.
I thought I can't really, in all honesty, look at pictures of foxes in the snow. I've got foxes in my back garden if I want to see foxes. Not into the animal photography, landscape photography, here where you come from. But the thing is, okay, three things about this. One, it's summertime. You want to do things that are not necessarily just looking at a great photographer taking classical work, whatever. You want to do things with kids, you want to do things with the family, you want to have a day out. This
So you want to indoctrinate your children with a love of space? Is that what you're saying?
Listen, who needs to indoctrinate a child with a love of space? All children have a love of space.
My
Don't
daughter doesn't, that's for sure. But anyway, let's move on.
we? But this exhibition is on at the National Maritime Museum in Greenwich. It's on until August the 11th. And so one reason to go is because it's summertime. It's a great venue. The National Maritime Museum and the Royal Museums in Greenwich are fantastic. They're so lovely. It's free as well. And it's a beautiful exhibition. It's actually really nicely put together. They had 3,700 entries. They come from 58 countries, 700 individuals, and I think there are about 100 photographs in here. It doesn't look like 100 photographs. It's very manageable. I think you take small children would be perfectly happy with this for a short amount of time. Tech nerds will be very happy with this for a long amount of time. Um, so you have the exhibition, you have this really nice display. They're on light boxes, everything's on
Uh,
light box.
Fifi, are these photographs of planets and stars?
Um, Moons, solar eclipses,
Right, okay.
auroras. Trust me. Listen, let me just finish here. This is there's a nice amount of information. You don't kind of go, oh gosh, I can't be bothered to read this. There's a nice amount of information. There's a lot of text specs. So if you are the kind of person who I know you have some listeners who are actually into the tech side, how do you make a picture? There's all that. There's the information about the kind of cameras and the way things are made. Um, and it isn't different. What are the categories that I wrote down? So yes, there are kind of planets and stars. There are aurorae, which, northern lights, but actually the overall winner is not northern, it's from New Zealand. Laren Ray's southern lights. Pictures of the moon, pictures of stars and nebulae, cityscapes. The overall winner is American Ryan Imperial. He's actually an ophthalmic photographer. He works at Duke University, North Carolina, and he started taking pictures through using a telescope for a hobby. But it is fascinating because it's an annular solar eclipse in Texas, and you look at this image, it just looks extremely abstract and very, very beautiful. But if you're interested in the science is fascinating. And if you're not interested in the science, it still looks beautiful. But if you're interested, if you're interested, Grant, readers, listeners, Grant is nodding. His eyes are drooping. But if you're interested in the human touch as well, I love this exhibition partly because people put a lot of work into this. People are excited by it. The youngest entrants are two boys, two brothers from Joshua and Ben, I think, who are in Derbyshire. Hi, Josh and Ben in Derbyshire. There's an under 16 winner. Um, and the images are beautiful. I'm sorry, they're just beautiful pictures.
Okay, so that is photographs of moons and stars and all that kind of stuff. It's great that it's free. It's great that it's presented, and it's great that you're bringing us something different to consider. And I said that with all the enthusiasm that I can possibly muster for such an exhibition. I have to tell you, I was once in the Australian outback, and the Australian kind of farmer guy. I was standing around a big open fire, and he looked up to the sky in his best kind of strong Australian accent and informed me that I could see the Southern Cross in such great detail. To which he was somewhat upset that I wasn't impressed. Um, it's just not for me. But that's this isn't a podcast for me. This is not a
Exactly.
podcast about me. It's
This
we
isn't this we try to have something for everyone. And my personally, I'm a bit of a space nerd. I do find this really interesting. And
okay.
I in Shepherd's Bush we don't have a lot of aurora borealis or anything like that. So I love this. But honestly, people, I think it's really worthwhile. But again, you can have a look on the website. The website doesn't give you a ton of stuff, but it will give you taste for what is there. And and it's just lovely, and it's on until August, and it's really, really worthwhile for a day out. That's what I think.
Yeah, well, it's nice to be by the river. There's some nice architecture and there's other stuff you can see. Right, now let's move on. What else have you seen,
It's
please?
okay. I got one more over here. So, for number three, Edward Muybridge defining modernities. Okay, we know who Edward Muybridge is.
Of course.
Okay,
I'm
Edward.
sure all the listeners will have seen the walking horse and the
I
walking,
mean,
all the rest of it.
yeah. So Edward Muybridge, however, nonetheless, let me talk a little bit about Edward Muybridge. So he was born in 1830 and he died in 1904. He was born in Kingston, Kingston, South London, not Kingston, Jamaica. And he's the person who took the photographs of running horses, moving animals, jumping human beings, all this kind of stuff. He's basically the person was who started taking photographs that showed how humans and animals moved, which is a spectacular scientific achievement in the 1860s, 1870s. But so what we have is I've been wanting to visit the Edward Muybridge display at Kingston Museum for a while, and unfortunately, it turns out it's tiny. It's like literally a couple of cupboards really, a couple of display cases. But it turns out that they have just launched a website. The website is edwardmuybridge.co.uk. The spelling is very strange. We'll have to put it in the show notes. But this is a brand new website that is an archive of his work, and it's a really, really useful archive for anyone who is interested again in photography as a science, photography as documentation, photography as an expression of human passion, intensity, commitment, and hard work. And his life story, my God, he was wild. It was
Well,
crazy.
I was going to say, shall we talk about murder?
Oh, we talk about murder. Let's start before the murder. Let's start about the crash. Well, he was born in 1830. He when he was 20, he emigrated to the US. He was a bookseller. He was working as a bookseller. So he started working in New York. He went to New Orleans and he went to San Francisco. And he started being interested in photography, which again, like, so this is like 1850s photography, is still brand new, but he was kind of getting interested in it. Um, when he was 30, he was in a stagecoach crash in Texas, and it was a really horrible crash. People were killed, everybody was injured. He was thrown clear, apparently, and he hit his head, landed on his head, was in a coma for several days, and sustained serious head injuries, which affected him for the rest of his life. So he had already decided he was leaving the States and going back to the UK. And he moved back to London eventually. He was able to repatriate to England to recuperate. And he had, as I said, been starting to be interested in photography, but during his recuperation, he started to learn more about photography and wet plate collodion.
Yeah, that's it.
That's the one. So he decided to become a professional photographer, basically. And he moved back to San Francisco when he was 37, I think, a man with a markedly changed personality. And he started his photography career, but he traveled a lot. He worked with various other photographers and business associates and so on. He did things like he went back to California and he took photographs of Yosemite Valley. He took photographs. He was sent by Uncle Sam to go to Alaska, which was newly acquired as a state, and take pictures of Alaska. He took photographs of a war with the Modoc Indian, Native Americans in California. And he worked in the University of Pennsylvania, and between 1883 and 1886, he took 100,000 images of people and animals in motion. And he got married. He was 41 when he got married. He married Flora. She was 20 years younger than him. And she was divorced, so she obviously was having a bit of a time herself. And they had a son. She had an affair with a friend of the family called Harry Larkins. And so Muybridge, they kind of, according to whether you believe all this or not, they lived separate lives in many ways. But anyway, he wasn't too happy with her having an affair, so he tried to break it off. Then she had a child, and she thought that the child might be Harry's and not Edward's. So Edward was like, that's enough. So he tracked Harry down to California where he's prospecting for gold or something. Said, I have a message for you from my wife. Pulls out a gun and shoots him point blank dead. So he gets he gets thrown in jail, pleaded insanity, even though well, his friends were saying he's insane. Harry was going, I'm not insane, I just killed my wife's lover. But he got off with a plea of justifiable homicide. So that was the thing. He was actually a murderer. But then leaving that aside, he did so many fascinating projects. He was basically commissioned by Leland Stanford, who was the former governor of California, to photograph the horse, the running horse. Image and so on. So he had this fairly long life, very productive, traveled around a lot. And the new website, edwardmuybridge.co.uk, you can get all the gory details of his life on Wikipedia, but the website is a really useful archive for people who want to explore what he did, to look at the work, to actually see the images he made and how he made them and so on. And yeah, human figures in motion, animals in motion, landscapes, the modern city, transport and trade. He took pictures of railways, which were still very, very new in those days and so on. So it's a great resource and it's brand new. You don't have to go to Kingston to see it.
Well, I think quite often when we think of exhibitions, we think about the physical exhibition, but actually, um, a website is quite often an exhibition of a photographer's work. And I am a great believer in finding out about these names because everybody will have known the Muybridge images. Some people might know the name Muybridge. Not everyone's going to know about the murder and um, and everything else. So, not the only photographer, I should say, involved in murder and various dark practices. But maybe I'll save those for another day. Um, that sounds great, and I think really don't think of it as old-fashioned photography either. Don't think about it as photography that isn't relevant to today.
So what I think the thing about these three things I'm talking about today, no matter how you feel about stars, pictures of space and what have you,
Mm.
these are really connected by people who take incredible pains and passion. They don't go to a studio, have an assistant bring them a coffee. These are people who go out there and went out there in the world and risked life and limb. They still risk life and limb, or they go out and they work so hard to make photographic images. And they used in the past with Muybridge, and they're using now with the documentary photographers for the World Press and the astronomy photographers. They're using photography in really creative ways to expand our knowledge of the world and of what's going on around us. I just think it's really important. Maybe I've kind of like been listening to a lot about AI and a lot of fake news and a lot of looking at crap, frankly, on phones recently. But I just feel it's really important to remind ourselves that people can do better.
Well,
Photography.
yeah, the conversations that you referred to that Bill and I have been having around landscape have really been about trying to do better and listen out for the next one concerning street photography because
Yeah.
that's sure to ruffle some feathers. But I think that the real key thing that links everything you've been talking about today is a very strong sense of why. The people know why they're doing it, and I think that increasingly that sense of the why is what's required of photographers when they're making work. And if the why is just chasing likes on social media, that's fine, but be honest about it. But intrinsically, the photographic medium today has the power to do an awful lot more.
And I think that there's a snobbishness as well about some forms of photography. There's a feeling that some things, as we said earlier, some things are cool and like some things get shows at the National Portrait Gallery and some things just don't. But actually, why not? This is better a lot of the time. It's certainly more valuable in many ways. Well, I think some of it is more valuable in some ways than some of the crap that we look at these days. So yeah, that's why I think that these three things are all worth checking out over the summer.
Well, three very good recommendations well, two very good, I joke,
Hey.
three very good recommendations for the future. And it seems to me that as we come to the end of this kind of exhibition season, that's quite a good place to leave it so that we'll start again fresh in the autumn when your eyes are refocused and not quite so jaded after seeing so much work. So I look forward catching up with you again. I think we're going to be talking in October. Will be the next episode of Seesaw. So thank you once again, Fee. How do people follow you on social media?
They follow me on social media at the Art Dictator, at
I,
the Art Dictator. I have to admit, mostly these days I'm on Instagram. I'm trying to keep up with the threads and the blue sky stuff, but it's been a very, very busy few weeks, couple of months recently. But I'm going to put some more stuff from what we're just talking about on social media coming up as well. And please reach out and connect. I had a lovely DM from a listener in Melbourne during the week. So we love it when people reach out and say, hey, like the podcast.
yeah, we do, and we do pass that on to me because we're getting so many emails from listeners that I've started to read out listeners' letters on the podcast as well. So, Fee, I should say, by the way, that is the art dictator. You make your own mind up as to why she chose that particular moniker. Fee, have a great summer and really look forward to catching up with you again in the fall.
Brilliant, Grant. Thank you very much. Same to you. Look forward to it.